Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tonight it's me, Christopher Hope, in for Nigel Farage on GB News as we celebrate the working class sport of darts. We'll be asking, are middle class gastropubs killing off the arrows? And I'll be revealing a surprise great darts champion. I should say that the champion is in fact me. Here it is. I won this contest with the Paddy Power Prostate Cancer UK Westminster Darts Championship just about 8 weeks ago. But more of that later. Been great fun to try and get involved with that. As the Labour Party refuses to launch an inquiry into the scourge of grooming gangs that have plagued this country for decades, are they failing the very same women and girls they promised to protect? In just one moment, I'll be speaking to the Shadow Home Secretary and asking why the Tory government didn't establish their own public inquiry when they had a chance. And campaigners who raise funds for a memorial to the Royal Navy's role in ending the slave trade are having trouble finding a landowner to site the memorial. And Sir Keir Starmer faces a difficult new year after 20 of his local councillors quit, saying the Prime Minister has abandoned Labour values. I'll be speaking exclusively to the leader of that group of the rebels on this programme shortly. All of that to come, but first the news with Samuel Francis.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Good evening to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 7. First to the United States, where the FBI says it does now believe the man behind the deadly New Year's Day terror attack in New Orleans acted alone. Shamsuddin Jabbar, an army veteran, killed 14 people and injured dozens more after driving his pickup truck into crowds. The 42-year-old who was shot and killed by police had posted online pledging allegiance to the Islamic State group. The FBI says it's now reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance footage and over 400 public tip-offs. The identities of the victims, including a former Princeton football star and an aspiring nurse, are still being confirmed. Well, meanwhile, a deadly explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas is also being investigated, but at this stage, the FBI say there is no definitive link to the incident in New Orleans. Well, that blast caused by a Tesla Cybertruck filled with fuel canisters and fireworks killed the driver and injured 7 others, though their identities remain undisclosed. The FBI's director has confirmed the investigation is now underway, but says it's in its very early stages. In the wake of the attack, incoming President Donald Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social, blaming the nation's open borders and vowing to stop the chaos under his leadership. Elon Musk has ramped up his attacks tonight on Sir Keir Starmer amid growing pressure on the government over its handling of the grooming gang scandal. On social media, the billionaire suggested safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips deserves to be in prison, he said. It comes after she insisted it was for Oldham Council alone to launch an investigation into child exploitation between 2011 and 2014. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is calling for a full national inquiry into the issue, saying justice for victims is long overdue. A group of 20 Labour councillors has quit the party today, accusing Sir Keir Starmer of abandoning traditional Labour values. The group from Broxtowe Borough Council have formed a breakaway independence group, with 100 members and a county councillor also leaving Labour. In response, the remaining Labour councillors in Broxtowe say they're extremely disappointed, but pledge to continue working for local residents. Suspected people smugglers could soon face travel bans, phone restrictions and social media blackouts under new government proposals. Ministers are introducing interim serious crime prevention orders to impose immediate restrictions, while courts review full orders. The move follows a sharp rise in small boat crossings last year, with over 7,000 more migrants arriving than in the previous 12 months. Labour says the powers will tackle vile gang networks, but the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told us earlier it won't make any difference.
This is the same government, of course, the same Labour Party who voted against life sentences for those very same gangs when they were in opposition. And on their watch, since the election, now 6 months ago, illegal immigration across the Channel has gone up by 29% compared to last year. And I think it was a huge mistake of Labour to scrap the Rwanda deterrent before it even started. The first flight was due to take off on the 24th of July, and Labour cancelled it before that plane had a chance to leave. And I think if that had started, then we would see the numbers dramatically reducing.
And the UK is bracing for a blast of Arctic air, with cold weather alerts across England and snow forecast for much of the country this weekend. The Met Office has issued warnings for snow and ice spanning England, Wales and Scotland, with Saturday expected to be the coldest day as temperatures plunge below freezing. Severe snowfall could also bring up to 40 centimetres in higher areas like the Pennines, causing potential travel chaos and power cuts. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in an hour. Now, though, it's over to Christopher Hope.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Now, Labour's come under fire after refusing to hold a public inquiry into historical sexual abuse by grooming gangs in Oldham. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, attacked this decision as disgraceful, while Kevin Badenoch said a full national inquiry into rape gangs was long overdue. Jess Phillips, Labour's safeguarding minister, insisted it was for Oldham Council alone to decide whether an investigation into alleged exploitation between 2011 and 2014 should be launched. Joining me now is GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters, who has broken the story today and done so much work into it. Charlie, welcome to GB News, of course.
Hi, Chopper. Good to be with you.
Are you surprised by the fact the Labour government is refusing to order a public inquiry?
No, I'm not, because the precedent is there for local inquiries to take place. So in many ways, Oldham having their own sort of government-led response would be an exception to the rule that's taken place for the best part of a decade now. We've had the Rotherham report, the Telford report, both led by local investigators. In Telford, there was the Crowther report, and in Rotherham, Alexis Jay led her own team. But another reason why it's not surprising is because I imagine it would throw up plenty of pretty concerning things for Labour to reflect on, in part because they've been in charge of that borough for a long time, up until May of this year. But also, I mean, reflecting on this decision to not push forward for a government-led inquiry. I mean, we can reveal that Jess Phillips made this decision in October, but the request went in July. I think one of the main problems that the Minister for Safeguarding has is that she ignored this request for over 3 months and had to apologise very deeply in her letter, which this channel has seen exclusively, when she reached out to the executive of Oldham Council. So it is a troubling story for Labour, but I suppose what they didn't expect, and what I didn't expect when I wrote the story, is that it would spark this almost international conversation. We've had Elon Musk getting involved in this story, but also the Conservative Party now calling for a national inquiry across all of the towns and cities in Great Britain where this has been a problem, which is a pretty remarkable thing to say after one Labour minister says no to just one town having a public inquiry. But yeah, it's an extraordinary response to that scoop.
And you mentioned there all those different local inquiries there have been. Is there a tipping point at some point at which it's worth doing a national overview report, because then you allow, people who are independent of all the different characters involved, and also connecting the dots between the different towns in the north, mainly in northwest of England, where the issue has been particularly felt?
Yeah, Chris, one of the reasons why there's been this vote and this demand for an independent inquiry is that the survivors in the town were not impressed with that 2022 review that was conducted locally by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. As you said in your intro, it was just from 2011 to 2014. The terms of reference they felt weren't sufficient. Now, that review found no evidence of a widespread cover-up, but it did reveal extraordinarily appalling things, including council workers in one case being involved in this sort of appalling abuse. And it really is some of the most heinous abuse that this country has ever seen. And so what the survivors want with the national inquiry is to take the council out of the equation, to look at this holistically with government-led interventions, but also to expand the time and the terms of reference. For the J report in Rotherham, for example, that was 1997 to 2013. Oldham, just 2011 to 2014. Many survivors that I've spoken to over the years working on this story say that just was not sufficient. Telford also, the Telford report found thousands of victims over decades. So why in Oldham was it just 3 years? I should also note that in the GMCA review, it was a 4-part review. It looked also at Rochdale, and its 4th part was recently released, looking at how Greater Manchester Police and the local authorities have progressed since Andy Burnham ordered this review. We revealed exclusively on the channel last year that the 2 authors behind the GMCA review stood down before the 4th report was released. As we understand it, that was due to their frustrations at a lack of information being able to be released to the investigators. All of this, I think, Chris, points towards why these survivors wanted that independent government intervention into this crisis. Like so many other towns, GB News has compiled at least 40 towns, close to 50 towns and cities where this kind of abuse has gone on. There are far too many unanswered questions, far too many abusers who have not been held to justice, and far too many, frankly, public servants who have not been held accountable for their failures in confronting it. That's why the survivors want a government-led intervention.
Joining us on Farage tonight, and joining me now in the studio here to discuss it is my panel of the former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and former Immigration Minister in the last Tory government, Tom Pursglove. To you first, Matthew Torbett. Why isn't this Labour government ordering a public inquiry? Are they nervous about what that might pull out?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything from anybody within the government with regards to why they wouldn't. I believe there was an inquiry up to 2020, which cost a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but there's been nothing specific looking at Oldham. And if Oldham Council, as long as it isn't, I've not looked into who it is, but if it's sort of, a Tory councillor trying to spoil for political gain, it's really silly, and you have to remember that.
I don't think it is at all. I think it's people here saying...
Is it in the council?
Well, what they want to do is try and join the dots between the different towns where this has happened and look at maybe lessons learned across the piece. And then that's what is not being done here. Jess Phillips, as Charlie Peters said there, delayed over 6 months before finally saying we're not going to do an inquiry. And there's real concern here that if you do an independent inquiry, you will get independent answers. Is there a concern on the race issue? Is there where it might be seen as racist because mainly the perpetrators are mainly from a certain part of our community?
I think if so, it's really silly. Because
there are victims out there who are not being served.
No, I agree. And the one thing that infuriates me, really, and I think is mind-numbing, is how those of us on the left have to get better at having uncomfortable conversations. I think there are victims at the heart of this that have been let down by different elements of the establishment, be that social services trying to cover things up, local authorities trying to cover things up, local politicians in some cases covering things up, as well as the police, because it was seen as politically uncomfortable. And I think, as someone that, listen, I'm a big believer in diversity in all its different strands, be that class, gender, race and all the rest of it. And I think, having lived in London for 5 years now, it works. It totally can work. But I think we actually do down on the left the diversity that we aim to champion by being quite condescending and going, oh, we can't talk about this because, you know, it might be uncomfortable.
And people get hurt, and they are hurt in this. You know, white girls being abused is what is the heart of this story. I mean, Tom Pursglove, we need a public inquiry because we don't know how many children have been abused and how many abusers are out there. A public inquiry looking across, Charlie Peters says 40 towns might be effective. Only about 4 or 5 have had their own local investigations.
I think this has been handled really insensitively today, and ministers are missing in action. It would seem to me that there's now an inevitability about needing to have this. I think that the position will change. I'm not sure that it's a tenable position to deny this inquiry, to try and join those dots. And I think there's good reasons for why, and my understanding of this is that it was independent and Labour councillors who made this request to government through the leadership of their council, because there will be factors like, for example, council resourcing around being able to do this properly, making sure that nothing is missed and that there's a thoroughgoing inquiry, making sure that it carries the confidence of the victims. There's a whole host of factors, as well as being able to compel witnesses, which a national inquiry would be able to do, which a local review perhaps wouldn't have the same locus.
You know this. You were a former Home Office Minister. This is a letter written by Amanda Soloway, at the time the Safeguarding Minister. She also hid behind the fact there'd be local inquiries, and then the Tory government, back in September 2022, when asked by Oldham Council for an investigation, a national public inquiry, forgive me, they said, no, we'll carry on doing with the local approach. So it's on you. And what is so frustrating for victims is you've got the two Labour and Tory politicians, I'm afraid not you personally, but the parties battling over who's in charge, and the victims are not being served at all.
I think you've got to put party politics to one side on this. I think
100%.
Whether you're Conservative, Labour, Reform, Liberal Democrat, Green, whatever you are, I think that putting victims at the centre of this and at the forefront of the thinking has to be the priority. And I had a read of that letter earlier. I'd not seen that letter before today, but had a read of that letter as well. And there was reference in there to various pieces of work that were ongoing, including the national inquiry that was ongoing at that point. That work has now concluded. This request has come in from this group of councillors in the area specifically affected, wanting this national resource. I think it's very difficult to ignore those calls, and I do think the time has come to build on that earlier work that has gone on, the task force that's been talked about a lot as well today, that has helped to bring people to justice,
it just feels
has helped to safeguard victims.
It could be a tipping point.
I don't feel that this position will hold.
For me, it's a bit like the post office scandal. We tolerated a lot of these people being convicted, and then at some point it broke out, that ITV film a year ago. I think this could be the tipping point, this reporting
I agree with you.
on GBNews by Charlie Peters, showing this denial of the problem here. I mean, again, we've got this government saying back in 2022 that it's clear that it's a local authority issue. We're hearing the same again from a Labour statement here, saying that they while they have supported a national overarching inquiry, they think local inquiries are the way to do it. They're strengthening the law, the government says, so the crimes are properly reported. But, Matthew, is this enough? It just seems it's not to me.
No, and I think there is a danger to society, actually, by not acting. If you are the government and you leave a vacuum where this is, you allow the fringe right to monopolise this issue, which is a very serious issue, into one that is basically rooted in anti-Muslim sentiment. This isn't about anti-Muslim, this is about righting wrongs, regardless of expense. These are girls that I went to school with, girls that were seen as rebellious or troublemakers or whatever else, who've been utterly failed by an establishment cover-up. And I suppose the only reason why this won't go, why people might not want an inquiry, is we've had inquiry after inquiry on all sorts of things, and people out there go, what's going to change? And I think there has to be something that gives here.
Well, Matthew Torbett, Labour advisor, former Labour advisor, and a former Immigration Minister, Tom Pursglove, thank you both for coming in and stay with us. Now, coming up, another blow for Sir Keir Starmer as 20 Labour councillors on one local authority quit the party. More on that in a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoz Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by yours?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so... yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
And how did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you away.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun.
Wow.
Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest, to be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not.
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face, ready? 3, I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
This
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Welcome back to Farage with me, Christopher Hope. Now, before the break, we spoke about Labour denying Oldham an inquiry into grooming gangs. Well, to get the reaction from the Tory opposition, joining me now is Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary. Chris Philp, thank you for joining us. Why didn't your party, when you were in government, order your own national public inquiry?
Well, good evening, Chris. This is obviously an incredibly serious topic, with thousands of young girls having been raped and abused over many years, and we should keep the victims at the front of our mind, of course. Now, look, in previous years, a number of inquiries were commissioned by successive Home Secretaries. One of those was a national inquiry, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, the ICSA inquiry that ran between 2015 and 2022. And there were some inquiries that were specific to particular towns. In addition to that, a grooming task force was set up by Rishi Sunak, which led to 550 arrests. And in addition to that, the last government started collecting data on the ethnicity of perpetrators to better inform the debate. Now, that started about a year and a half ago. That data should now be available, and I call on the government to now publish the data that the last government started to collect. But all of those measures I just mentioned, I think, are not enough, because this issue is so serious. There are suspicions that public authorities, the police, the Crown Prosecution Service and local councils, firstly, did not properly investigate these allegations against vulnerable young girls when they were made. And even more than that, there are allegations that in some circumstances there was actively a cover-up. Now, the only way to make sure we understand what really happened, that we make sure the truth is exposed publicly, is to have a proper national public inquiry with the ability to compel witnesses to appear so the truth comes out. That is essential, and I'm very disappointed. In fact, I'm shocked that Labour today have refused to do that, even though it's clearly needed. And in fact, as far as I can tell, the Labour Party, the Labour government are not even putting forward ministers to answer questions that are being asked by journalists. There is silence from the Labour Party, a conspiracy of silence, and that is not good enough when it comes to vulnerable young girls who have been abused and raped over so many years.
Chris Philp, you've written today, haven't you, to Yvette Cooper, yourself, with Lisa Cairns, the Shadow Safeguarding Minister, saying that only a statutory public inquiry can adequately encompass the national nature of these crimes and issues. But I say again, it's not a new thing. This inquiry, the Oldham inquiry, looked back over a decade. I mean, isn't it? Do you think this might be a tipping point in the same way a year ago we saw the Post Office inquiry start? You've got these issues happening in towns and cities way out of London, and it's almost ignored by the kind of people running the country. And at some point, it must punch through. We've been talking about this for months on GB News. Is this the moment at which maybe this government has to grip this and order a public inquiry?
Yeah, I think it is a tipping point because, you know, we've seen Kenny Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, publicly call for this inquiry this morning. I've obviously strongly backed that as the Shadow Home Secretary as well. I think this is the moment where the government has to admit there's been a problem and order this proper statutory public inquiry that has the ability to compel witnesses to appear. Evidence is given under oath. Yep. They can compel the production
you say it's a problem on your watch. I mean, why have you not dealt with this? Was there a nervousness about the ethnicity of the perpetrators? Is that what stopped you doing it? Were you hidebound by officials in the Home Office saying this is a local issue, Minister, not national? You know, were you too cowardly to take any proper action on this as a Tory government?
I mean, Chris, I explained a couple of minutes ago the action the last government took, which included the 7-year national independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. It included town-specific reports, the J report back in 2014, which I think started the whole thing. I've talked and the Grooming Gangs Task Force, which has led to 550 arrests. And previous Conservative Home Secretaries and the previous Prime Minister started getting the police to collect the data, so we had real information on the background, the ethnic background of people committing these offences, because the evidence seems to suggest the grooming gangs are overwhelmingly of South Asian background. We need to understand that so we can deal with the problem. So all of those actions were taken. But I think now we've begun to see some of that data. Now we've seen things like the ICSA report. We've seen the work of the Grooming Gangs Task Force, which has been going about a year and a half. I think we now know enough to be clear that a proper national statutory public inquiry is now needed to make sure the truth comes out. And that will make sure there's no conspiracy theories, there's no speculation. The public need to know, have a right to know. The victims have a right to know what happened, to find out if some local councils, most of which are Labour controlled in this case, did cover up what was going on. You know, did the police fail to act? Did the Crown Prosecution Service and successive directors of public prosecution fail to act? These are the kind of questions that I think the public and the victims deserve real answers to, and only a statutory public inquiry can now deliver that. And I'm shocked that the Labour government is not delivering it.
Well, Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, thank you for joining us tonight on Farage. I should read out elements of the Labour statement we've been sent by the party. We have asked, of course, for Minister to come on GB News tonight. They say that child sexual abuse and exploitation are the most horrendous crimes, and the Home Office supports police investigations and independent inquiries to get truth and justice for victims. We have supported both the national overarching inquiry into child abuse, which was reported in 2022, and local independent inquiries, including those in Telford, Rotherham and Greater Manchester. They're working hard, it says here, the government, to strengthen the law so that these crimes are properly reported and investigated, and so it goes on. Right, 20 councillors in Nottinghamshire have quit Labour, accusing the party under Sir Keir Starmer of abandoning traditional values. The group from Broxtowe Borough Council, many of whom have been in the party for decades, now plans to form a new independent group to run the council. They've criticised Labour's policies, including cutting winter fuel allowances for millions of pensioners, and plans to scrap local councils in favour of super councils. A local Labour spokesperson called the move incredibly disappointing, while the councillors, for their part, say 100 grassroots members had also resigned. Joining me now is leader of that group of rebels, Milan Radojevic. Milan, welcome to Farage on GB News. Thank you for coming on and sparing the time. Critics will say you are simply still Labour councillors. All you've stopped being is representing the party. You still believe in the same issues. So what difference will this make to local people?
We will continue to do the work on behalf of our community that we've always done. And that is to concentrate our efforts on improving the quality of life of the people that we represent. We take great pride in the fact that we build a number of homes. We acquire homes for people to live in at affordable rents. The average rent in Broxtowe being £92 per week, which is considerably lower than the housing allowance. And we save the government millions and millions of pounds in housing benefit per year for doing so. We will continue to look after and to develop our culture and our heritage and develop our arts programme and sport on behalf of people and leisure and recreation. We also take very seriously our issues around the environment. We plan to be carbon neutral in Broxtowe by 2027. Those policies will remain unchanged. It is purely about the way in which we have been treated by the regional and national party. A number of our councillors have been expelled. Our constituency continues to be dysfunctional. And recently we've had 10 of our councillors blocked from standing as county councillors in the upcoming May elections, simply because we refused to accept the Westminster ruling about the withdrawal of winter fuel allowance, the two-child benefit cap, the betrayal of WASPy women, and the imposition of target housing figures without any consultation and public involvement.
Well, what's driven this decision by the 20? I mean, it's quite a lot of councillors to change sides on one council, 20 of them. Are you still in overall control of the council by doing that? Is that right?
No, although I will still remain in control. I'm considering handing in my resignation to the council and asking the council to re-elect me as new leader under the new arrangements.
Of course, yes. So we'll wait to see if that comes to pass. But in your letter, you mentioned the local elections twice in May this year. Is that what's driving it? You fear that unless you separate out yourselves from the government, you'll be badly hit at the ballot box in May?
No, what we're concerned about is the fact that we've been blocked. Say 10 of our councillors have been blocked from standing as candidates. And that imposition, we consider, and I consider to be totally unacceptable. These are dedicated, hard-working, the grassroots supporters of the Labour Party. They're the people who knock on doors. They're the people who deliver leaflets. They're the people who try to give hope to local groups and organisations and to support their local communities.
Yes.
And to be blocked from standing because we disagree with some of their national stances is wrong.
Yes. And what's your message tonight? If Keir Starmer's watching from his sunbed, wherever he is on holiday, what would be your response to him, your message to the leadership of this government?
Many people, particularly working class people in areas like I represent in Eastwood, feel a deep sense of betrayal by the government. As I said to you, it's the imposition of the two-child welfare cap. It's the treatment of the WASPy women, which we consider to be betrayal. It's the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance. On the doors, people are saying to us, who's going to represent us? And nobody does represent them anymore. So we are making this stand. My message to Keir Starmer is, come and talk to us. Come and talk to me. Don't send us the diktats. Don't send us suspensions or other measures to keep us quiet. Actually, come and talk to us about what we can do and work together. However, I have never once, I want to make this point clear to you. Since 1995, when I first became leader of Broxtowe Borough Council, and I've been leader 22 years, not once in my entire political career has any member of the regional or national Labour Party come to me in my office and said, how can we help you deliver the programme that you're delivering? Not once.
Well, I just wonder why that is. Is it because there's a kind of London bias amongst the leadership? Is it because they overlook the needs of Broxtowe?
It's because they are protecting the establishment, the civil service and the establishment. The establishment in this country takes all the wealth for itself. It takes all the prosperity. It takes every opportunity to promote itself. And it's us, the working class, who are paying far more tax in disproportionate proportion of our earnings to keep them in the lap of luxury that they're in. It's totally London-centric. It is divorced from any sort of reality of the situation on the street. And my challenge, and I've challenged other people, is to come and walk the streets with me and talk to local people about what we need. We don't need imposition of you must build 1.5 million houses in 5 years. What we want to do is to actually continue to the build programme to build to the social and economic needs of an area. We want to see social services that are able to discharge people into the community from hospital, where they can live their lives in dignity.
Well, Milan Radojevic, absolute wake-up call, mate, I think, for this government. Thank you for joining us tonight, live from Broxtowe. Thank you, sir. And here's a statement from the local Broxtowe Labour Party in response to those mass defections. It's incredibly disappointing, they say, that some Broxtowe councillors have decided to leave the Labour Party and sit as independents when they were elected on a Labour ticket just over 18 months ago. These defections have no effect on the commitment of the remaining Labour councillors in serving our residents. We, together with our Labour colleagues, including MPs Juliet Campbell and Alex Norris, will continue to make Broxtowe a healthier, greener, safer and more prosperous place for everyone as change begins under this Labour government. Now, campaigners who raise funds for a memorial to the Royal Navy's role in ending the slave trade are having trouble finding a landowner who will site the memorial.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another cold one out there this evening. It's going to be a hard frost by morning across much of the country. Further snow coming in across northern Scotland. Strong winds means blizzards as the snow peppers through the Northern Isles. Easing for a time here, but spreading down into the mainland of Scotland. We could see several centimetres in some places. And with the showers further west and temperatures tumbling, that may well lead to some icy conditions for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England. Largely dry for England and Wales. Clear skies means it will be a cold start to Friday. The strong winds really blowing in the showers over northern Scotland through the night and still into the morning. So a Met Office snow and ice warning in place here, say several centimetres in some locations. Further west, it's more rain at low levels that we'll see, but with temperatures close to freezing, it could be icy over western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, even into northwest England as the showers come in here. Elsewhere, it's a frosty but generally sunny start to Friday. As we go through the day, I think we'll see the snow showers easing a little bit. A mixture of rain and sleet showers coming into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northwest England. Still some snow flurries coming into northeastern parts of Scotland. Still very windy here as well. That wind really bringing a chill. A few scattered showers for North Wales, but a good chunk of the Midlands, South Wales, southern England, eastern England staying dry. Feeling cold though, particularly in that wind in the east. Temperatures in single figures. Another frosty night on Friday night. Again, potentially quite icy on Saturday morning. Again, a good chunk of the country looking dry and fine, but a change down to the southwest weather system moving in. That'll bring some rain initially, but as this weather system hits the colder air, we could see some heavy snow for a time on Saturday. Probably not lasting too long across the south, but as it spreads into the Midlands, Wales, northern England, parts of Scotland, that snow could really build up as we head into Sunday. Freezing rain is an extra hazard as well, something to keep an eye on this weekend.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, in the early 19th century, a courageous group of Royal Navy soldiers, known as the West Africa Squadron, risked everything to end the transatlantic slave trade. Operating between 1807 and 1867, they freed 150,000 Africans destined for slavery at the cost of nearly 1,600 of their own lives. Yet, despite their bravery, no memorial exists to honour these fallen heroes. One man's mission to rectify this oversight has led to the creation of a powerful tribute designed by acclaimed sculptor Vincent Gray. It was destined for a site at Gunwharf Quays in Portsmouth until the site owners had a change of heart, saying it may upset the sensibilities of some customers. Joining me now to discuss this is Colin Kemp, the retired businessman who launched the fundraising campaign for the memorial. Colin, welcome to GB News.
Hi, Chris. Hi.
Surely there's a place to commemorate the sacrifice of these brave men who fought to stop slavery?
Well, this is the most disappointing thing, Chris. I mean, the squadron was based in Portsmouth. Gunwharf Quays is virtually where the squadron sailed from. But Landsec, the owners of the property, decided for whatever reasons that they didn't want it on their property. So I then approached Portsmouth City Council, offering them the statue, which is completely paid for, fully completed and ready to be installed. We have the funds ready for the installation and the maintenance. And they rejected it. I then approached the historic naval dockyard, the Royal Navy dockyard in Portsmouth, the home of the British Navy. Again, with the concept that the statue is here, it's ready, it celebrates, it's a memorial to the men who lost their lives in the West Africa Squadron. And again, they rejected it. So
I wonder what I'm looking now on screen at the statue. Is there a problem with it? I mean, you know, it does depict what the story of this is, which is sailors from the UK, white members of the Royal Navy, freeing Africans who are from bondage. I mean, it is what it is. Is it too graphic for some people? Is that what's going on?
I'm not sure, Chris. Vincent, the sculptor, and I talked about this at great length before we agreed on the design. And what we've tried to do pictorially or visually is tell the story. So you have a shackled slave girl, you have the officer from the West Africa Squadron, and you have the freed slave. And our memorial, our statue, our sculpture is going to be interactive, so that using a smartphone, people who are viewing the sculpture can hear the words of the story of the slave girl in their own words. They can hear the story of the officer in the West Africa Squadron, and they can hear the story of the freed slave. We are not trying to whitewash slavery. Slavery was wrong. Prior to 1807, Britain, many individuals, many cities made a lot of money from slavery. But after 1807, when the British public forced Parliament to pass the Abolition of Slave Trade Act, we should be proud of that act. There's many people now talk about slavery.
Colin, we have a statement here from Portsmouth City Council. I'll read it out to you and get your reaction. We have not received an official request to host this statue, they say tonight. And due to the historic nature of Portsmouth, we have a very large number of statues across the city, and a number of our more popular locations have reached saturation point where we are no longer able to consider new statues. So they say that you haven't officially applied for the right to host the statue, and anyway, they're too full already. What do you say to that?
Chris, I sent your staff earlier the email that had been sent to the leader of the council, leader of Portsmouth Council. So what they're saying is absolutely wrong, it's incorrect. The current sites in Portsmouth may be full, but they're building a new waterside development, a seawall defensive place. And one of the councillors, when we talked to them, said, quote, "It will probably be vandalised and thrown into the sea." That was the attitude, yeah, exactly. That was the attitude of Portsmouth City Council.
I'm sure they might dispute that. I mean, how can you make this official? Perhaps get local MPs, maybe former MP Penny Mordaunt to apply for it? Or?
Well, Penny is still very, very supportive, as have been the viewers of GB News who contributed to the £70,000 which the statue cost. And again, I would just draw a comparison between the statue that Sir Sadiq Khan is having in London, which is costing £500,000 of public money, and is a conch shell which apologises for London's role in the slave trade. Now, what our memorial does is tell the whole story.
Yep.
The slavery was wrong, the slave trade was wrong, but we stopped it, and we made it go away.
Well, Colin Kemp, we'll say across us at GB News, and thank you for joining us tonight on Farage, and we'll make sure we can say across that one for you. Now, it's the semi-final of the World Darts Championship tonight. Can the 17-year-old Luke Littler make the final?
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, here's your latest winter sun forecast for GB News. Over the next few days, things will be turning more unsettled across southern parts of Europe. We'll see a few showers across the Canary Islands and Madeira on Friday, some sunshine too. Sunshine for southern parts of Spain, rain further north, and as we head into central and southeastern parts of Europe, much more in the way of unsettled weather here. Plenty of rain around, some snow on the hills, and temperatures will be struggling in places too. As for the next few days into the weekend and the start of next week, we hold on to that mixed theme, plenty of sunshine but further showers at times as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they've found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Chris is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you if you bother to do the maths, you know, because all it is maths and walking. Yeah. You know, that's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Christopher Hope. Now we've reached the crunch stages of the World Darts Championships with the semi-finals taking place tonight. It's been a cracker of a tournament so far, and there have been some thrilling matchups over the past 3 weeks at the Ali Pali in London. Darts is massively popular, but there is a threat, some say, to the arrows from gastro pubs which prefer a more middle-class clientele. With me now is former darts world champion Keith Deller, live from the Alexandra Palace in London. Keith, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Do you worry about the future of darts? The Ali Palace is rammed full of people celebrating the fact it's taking place, but in pubs we found it quite hard tonight to find a board to go and film at.
I think it actually changed, Chris, when the smoking ban came in. A lot of pubs, smaller pubs, they relied on the people going in, drinking, smoking, and unfortunately we took a big hit, the pubs there. But food, there's more profit in food, and sadly it's hard now to find the pubs. They're dying very easy now, where there's just not the pubs with the dartboards anymore. And I always find that darts was a real social evening. You could go out, you might not know someone, but you can have a game of darts and get to meet people.
Yeah.
So it is a shame, but darts on the whole is massive. Actually, Michael Van Gogh has just got on stage.
It is absolutely huge. I mean, we've found a few. It's not very well charted in stats. We have found some figures showing the number of venues with dartboards in central London has fallen from 110 to 62 over the past decades. Pub closures, we know about that, of course, over 10,000 pubs closing. But despite that, it is attracting viewers, isn't it, on TV, and people are enjoying themselves watching it.
Well, I work as a spotter for Sky Sports, and I tell the cameras where to go. And tickets, you just cannot get a ticket. I mean, they sell out. I mean, the PDC, Barry Hearn, the way they run it is unbelievable. As soon as the tournament's finished, you just can't get a ticket. It's the hottest ticket, one of the hottest tickets in sport now. The celebrities want to be there, royalty even come along. So darts is very popular. The viewing figures are fantastic. Arenas sold out, and darts is in a really healthy place. But on the other side is that the person down the street want to have a game of darts, they're going to find it a lot harder.
Well, look, Keith Deller, thanks for joining us tonight from the Ali Pali. Hope you had a great night there. Back in the studio here, I'm still joined by my panel, Matthew and Tom. I mean, do you play darts? Is it a working class sport that is being forgotten by the middle classes?
I've turned my hand a bit over the years, and a few years back went to the Ali Pali, saw Michael Van Gogh, and it's a fantastic night out, actually, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think when you look at Luke and all of the success he's having, and we wish him well tonight, that can only be a good thing in terms of encouraging the next generation to get on and play. Yeah.
You play, Matthew? Are you on the hockey with the arrows?
I'm terrible, but one people might want to watch out for is the current Stockport darts champion, Luke Torbett, who I might have some biases towards, my younger brother, but only picked up the arrows 18 months ago. No, I don't think it's being forgotten, though, either, because actually what we're seeing is a resurgence. There's nothing more, for me, British culture than darts at Ali Pali, and I'm buzzing to see. I mean, I'm not buzzing because I couldn't get a ticket myself. I wasn't like Tom, unfortunately. Luke Little has done wonders for the sport.
Well, GB News, we love it. I am the official Western the Darts. I'll share it again. Western the Darts champion, because I played darts with Michael Smith, and we beat off like Tom Wesme winning there with Fallon Sherrock, also a female darts player. But and he was the world number one at the time, Michael Smith, of course, the famous, nearly got a 9-dart finish at the championships a year or so ago. But no, great fun, the dart. I think a lot of Labour MPs love it, Tom Pursglove. And we were raising money there for Prostate Cancer UK with 180 campaigns backed by Paddy Power to get more men checking out for prostate cancer. So it is doing some good work out there.
Great cause, and actually, often Parliament really has engaged in this, and we saw various occasions where colleagues had a go, and that was actually why we were there, to see them up on the stage on the night.
Well,
and they didn't do too badly, actually, so good effort.
Well, Matthew Torbett, thank you, and also Tom Persley for joining us tonight on GB News. And to our new star presenter, Matt Grooming, what's on your show tonight? Are you a big fan of the Arrows?
I love a game of darts with the guys in the pub. I love it. In fact, me and the guys I grew up with, we still play darts every other weekend. Look, the show tonight, Chris, we're looking at this grooming gang scandal from different angles. Everybody in the country is talking about it. You go online, everybody's talking about this horrific scandal. We've got Reform MP Rupert Lowe, who is lobbying the Home Office currently to get more data, more information about what they knew and when, and crucially, what we can do about it. And lastly, we've got a former Labour MP who was told by a former chairman of the Labour Party not to look at this scandal too closely. So we're going to be hearing about how the establishment basically tried to cover this thing up.
Am I wrong to compare this to the Post Office scandal? I wonder whether there's a tipping point happening right now, a year on from that moment, when people think, why is this being allowed?
I think this is going to become a national story.
Coming up next, State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. But first, of course, is the weather. It's a cold weekend coming up with Alex Deakin.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another cold one out there this evening. It's going to be a hard frost by morning across much of the country. Further snow coming in across northern Scotland. Strong winds means blizzards as the snow peppers through the Northern Isles. Easing for a time here, but spreading down into the mainland of Scotland. We could see several centimetres in some places, and with the showers further west and temperatures tumbling, that may well lead to some icy conditions for western Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England. Largely dry for England and Wales. Clear skies means it will be a cold start to Friday. The strong winds really blowing in the showers over northern Scotland through the night and still into the morning, so a Met Office snow and ice warning in place here, say several centimetres in some locations. Further west, it's more rain at low levels that we'll see, but with temperatures close to freezing, it could be icy over western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, even into northwest England as the showers come in here. Elsewhere, it's a frosty but generally sunny start to Friday. As we go through the day, I think we'll see the snow showers easing a little bit. A mixture of rain and sleet showers coming into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northwest England. Still some snow flurries coming into northeastern parts of Scotland. Still very windy here as well. And that wind really bringing a chill. A few scattered showers for North Wales, but a good chunk of the Midlands, South Wales, southern England, eastern England staying dry. Feeling cold though, particularly in that wind in the east. Temperatures in single figures. Another frosty night on Friday night. Again, potentially quite icy on Saturday morning. Again, a good chunk of the country looking dry and fine, but a change down to the southwest weather system moving in. That'll bring some rain initially, but as this weather system hits the colder air, we could see some heavy snow for a time on Saturday. Probably not lasting too long across the south, but as it spreads into the Midlands, Wales, northern England, parts of Scotland, that snow could really build up as we head into Sunday. Freezing rain is an extra hazard as well, something to keep an eye on this weekend.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children and I'm really concerned about... I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And, of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think, from memory, it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box, so all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforced in the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line, and I think it will force the hand because they've said